Man, the heat is on. Hey everyone. Most people assume bears wander into towns because forests are shrinking, food is running out, or their numbers have exploded thanks to conservation laws. While all of that is true, there's another reason many folks forget. Hikers and campers often leave scraps of food behind. Over time, bears have learned to link the smell of people with the promise of an easy meal. Now they're showing up more often in farm fields, raiding beehives, tearing through garbage cans, and even attacking livestock. In some cases, they've gone so far as to break into houses, creating a real threat to both local farmers' livelihoods and public safety. If you want to follow more stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next. In response to the growing threat, the U.S. government authorized controlled hunts to limit the destruction caused by wild bears. To improve our odds, we set out bait, grain, honey, and fresh salmon. As the afternoon heat intensified, the smell of fish carried through the forest like an open invitation, impossible for a hungry predator to ignore. Then I slung my .30-06 rifle and made my way into the woods. About 60 yards from the bait site, we built a blind behind a wall of fallen logs and brush, concealed but with a clear line of sight. Rifle steadied on bipods, we scanned the trees, every sense sharpened by silence. Then, as the light began to fade and shadows stretched long across the forest floor, a massive bear appeared, muscular, cautious, and following the trail of scent straight toward us. My finger rested close to the trigger as I steadied my breath, waiting for the perfect moment. Each step the bear took brought it deeper into the endgame, completely unaware of the hunters nearby. Because of their unpredictable and aggressive nature when threatened, bears are rarely hunted alone. Most groups range from 2 to 5 people. That day, we had trekked nearly 3 hours along the forest's edge, where snow clung stubbornly to the rocks and the crisp air carried the scent of sage and granite. Our guide, Craig, was the first to spot movement, a grizzly gliding across a rocky slope like a bronze shadow, nose down, searching for prairie dogs. We hunkered behind boulders for 2 long hours, the wind biting at our faces, until the bear finally closed to within 270 yards. I squeezed the trigger, the rifle's crack echoing through the thin mountain air. The bear roared and reared up in rage. I fired again, driving the shot just behind its shoulder. It staggered, thrashed violently, and then collapsed, the forest falling silent around us. Even in death, the animal still carried an air of majesty. Its muscles coiled like thick rope, its claws curved and sharp as steel. Not long after, word spread through the eastern outskirts of Wyoming about a black bear raiding hay bales and feedlots. It was unusual for bears to roam that far out, but this one had clearly learned how to adapt. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that wild bears inflict nearly $5 million in losses on American agriculture each year. Determined to track this one down, I relied on both an ATV and a drone, spending 2 full days tracing its movements across the countryside. Finally, on a brisk Tuesday morning, I caught sight of it near a windbreak along an old fence line. The bear was massive, sleek, and alone. I crouched low, using what little brush the land offered, and worked my way to within 150 yards. The bear halted suddenly, lifted its head, and sniffed the air before rising onto its hind legs. Its eyes found me. I squeezed the trigger just as it lunged forward. The shot punched through its lung, but the bear bolted with astonishing speed, kicking up clouds of dust before crashing down and rolling to a stop. But not every hunt ends with a clean victory. One evening, just before the light disappeared, a massive bear wandered beneath my perch, far too close for a safe downward shot. I stayed perfectly still, hoping it would pass, until the wind betrayed me. The bear lifted its head, and our eyes locked. My pulse hammered as it circled the tree, growling low and deep. With no choice, I eased down slowly, rifle at the ready, fully aware I had broken the golden rule, never let a bear get within striking distance. Then a branch snapped somewhere in the brush, and the bear spooked. It spun, crashed through the timber, and was gone. This time, I had to watch it escape. Few hunts compare to tracking grizzlies along Alaska's salmon-rich rivers. On the Kenai Peninsula, I teamed up with a licensed guide and pitched camp beside a river bend famous for its spawning runs. Hours later, a massive grizzly stormed through the shallows, its fur slick with fish scales. I waited until it dragged a salmon onto the bank, then took a shot. The bullet struck cleanly behind the ear, and the bear dropped instantly. What do you think? Can hunts like this truly help manage America's wild bear population? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss what's coming next. Late fall hunting brings its own brutal challenges. Snow blankets the land, muffling every sound while concealing hidden dangers. We tracked a black bear to its den, not yet deep in hibernation, restless, perhaps stirred by passing hikers. From our vantage point above the slope, we watched closely. Then the bear pushed out of its snow-capped den, following the trace of our scent. I had only seconds to react. The shot cracked through the still forest, and the bear staggered before collapsing back inside the den. It was a quiet, solemn end. Bow hunting, however, demands a completely different skill set. A bow is silent compared to a rifle, sparing nearby wildlife from alarm, but it leaves no room for error. Without the luxury of fast follow-up shots, hunters must rely on patience, setting up in tree stands and waiting for the perfect ambush. I spent 5 long days tracking a mother bear and her cub. By Friday morning, they circled back to the bait box I had set. But the moment they sensed danger, both bolted and scrambled up a tree. I didn't hesitate. Drawing my bow, I loosed an arrow that buried deep into the shoulder. The bear tore off into the brush, leaving a blood trail behind. Hours later, I followed it to a sparse bush, where it finally lay still. In Montana, the hunt took on an entirely different form. I joined a crew of 5 in a coordinated effort, each of us posted at key points around a ravine where a grizzly had been spotted. Scouts pressed forward to drive it out. The forest erupted with the sound of breaking branches, and suddenly the bear thundered up the slope. I steadied, fired twice, and watched it collapse only a few feet from the ridge. Bear hunting in the United States is tightly regulated. Every licensed hunter is required to file detailed reports after a hunt, and harvest limits are strict, usually no more than 5 to 10 bears per season. Breaking those rules comes with steep consequences, with fines ranging from $10,000 to $15,000. But hunting wild bears here goes far beyond trophies or adrenaline. It's about forging a deep connection with the wilderness, one built on knowledge, discipline, risk, and above all, respect for the animal and the land.